Hey everybody, my name's Todd and I'm going to teach you how to get better at chess. No, not checkers. At chess. Ooh, nice hand. How many countries does Canada border? Chess. I'm going to make you better at chess. Let's get started. Hello everybody, welcome to another video, Chess 101 on YouTube. So the first thing is, please subscribe to my channel. You'll see the subscribe button down there. Just subscribe. You'll be able to watch all the chess videos. The idea here is to get you really good at chess, not just learning basic pieces, but we're going to go more advanced as we move along through lessons. One of the things I've done here that you probably notice is you're looking at an actual mat and actual pieces on an actual board and not just that computer thing that you'll see where they just put up, you know, the two-dimensional thing. And the reason why you're learning this way is because when you actually play over the board, this is your perspective. You'll be sitting looking at the pieces at this angle and everything. So today we're going to take these 5 basic pieces. All we're going to talk about is how these 5 pieces move: king, queen, rook, knight, and bishop. And then we're going to do another video just about pawns because they move special. And then we're going to do a final one about castling because that's a completely different thing altogether. So we'll just start with the king. Okay, so here's the king. Right now I have it on a square. It's on D2, not its starting square. If you watched my video yesterday, the king's starting point is right here on E1. The king is always on the E file, but we're just, for instructional purposes, we're going to put it here today. Now the king is the main piece of the game, piece you try to capture, and how it moves is very simple. The king moves 1 square and it can go in any direction. It can go to the left, it can go to the right, it can go forward, it can go backwards, and it can go diagonal. Is any square it touches, it can move in that direction, okay? So the king moves in any direction, and when the king takes a piece, so let's just put a piece out here for the king to take. Oh, it's under attack by the rook. The rook is attacking the king, right? And you'll learn how the rook moves. But the king could just move 1 square over and take the rook. If the rook was sitting here, the king could move 1 square and take the rook here, right? So the king just moves 1 square in any direction. The king has, as you can see here, there's 8 squares it can go to. If we put the king over on the corner over here, then it only has 3 squares to go to because it's in the corner. If we put it on the side, now it's got 5 squares it can go to. And then once we get the king back into the middle of the board, it's got its 8 squares that it can move. Another thing to point out is the king cannot move into a square occupied by one of its pieces. So if the king had a piece next to it, like that, for example, the king can't move into this square because there's already a piece there, okay? So the next piece we're going to talk about is the queen. So the queen is sitting here. Now, it moves very similar to the king. Remember how the king can move 1 square in any direction? Well, the queen can move in any direction, but it can move an unlimited number of squares. So the queen can move 1 square. It can move 2 squares. It can move all the way over here. From here, it can come all the way here. It can go on any of these D squares, any of the squares on this, the second rank. It can go diagonally anywhere it wants. So if it's on a black square, it can go to any black square diagonal like that, all right? So the queen can go to a lot of squares. And the king takes the same way the king takes. It just takes us on its square. So if we have say we have a bishop that's sitting over here, and then the queen can just come over here and take the bishop, and the bishop's off the board, all right? Okay, so the next piece we're going to talk about is the rook. Now, the rook is a piece that is very versatile as well. If you remember from the last video, it's worth 5 points. Now, the rook can move very similar to the queen. It can move 1 square, or it can move many squares, but it can only move in straight lines. It can't move on the diagonals. So the rook can go anywhere on this rank. It can go anywhere on this file, but it can't move diagonally. So if the rook wanted to get to, say, this square, so let's put a piece over here on this square. Okay, so there's a black pawn on this square. Now, if the rook wants to take this piece, it has 2 ways to do it. If it only can move in straight lines, can you see the two different ways that rook can get that pawn? Okay, so if one of your ways was the rook would go to here, and then on the next move, the rook could travel here and take the pawn. Okay, the pawn would be off the board. The other way to do it is from here, the rook could travel this direction, and then on the next move, the rook could come over here and take the pawn. Okay, so that's how the rook works. Remember, the rook can go in anywhere on the board. It can move to any color square, but it can only move in straight lines. Now we're going to do the bishop. So here's the bishop, and the reason I put two of them on the board is because you'll notice one bishop is on a dark square and one bishop is on a light square. Black has the same thing. So black would have a bishop on the dark square and a bishop on the light square as well. The bishops move as many squares as they want, but only on these diagonals. So the bishop can move over here, and it can move over here. It can move here, it can move here. But it can't move, this bishop can never go onto a white square because it's stuck on these dark squares, okay? And this bishop is on the light color squares, and it can only go on the light color squares, but it can never get onto a dark square. And then same with the black pieces. The black bishop can stay on the dark squares, the white bishop on the light squares. And bishops is kind of a special piece because if you're playing, and let's say that this person only has this dark square bishop, if you have your pieces on the light squares, like these bishops here can never take each other. In the game, they can never take each other because this is on a dark square, it can only be on a dark square going diagonally. This one can only be on the light squares, so they can never capture each other. They can support other pieces, take other pieces, but these bishops can never take each other. So that's how the bishop moves. And the last one we're going to do is the knight. So here's the knight. The knight is a special piece. So why is the knight a special piece? Well, everything I've shown you so far moves in straight lines. You either move on ranks, on files, you move one square in any direction, you move on diagonals, and the knight doesn't do any of those. The knight does something very interesting. It moves two squares in one direction and one square in another direction. So this knight right here could go two squares in one direction and then one square here. So it could go to here. From here, it could go to here by going two squares and one over this way, okay? To go here, it could go two squares and one over, right? And so on and so forth. So I'm going to set the board up and to show you something here. Ready? Okay, so I put the knight in the middle of the board. It's a black knight. It's on a light-colored square, and I put the white pawns on dark-colored squares. These are all the squares this knight can go to in the middle of the board. As you can see, the knight can go 2 and 1, 2 and 1, 2 and 1. An interesting thing about the knight is if it's on a light color square, the next move it only can go to a dark square. And then if it's on a dark square, on the next move it ends up on a light square, because if you notice the board is a checkerboard, so it's 2 and 1, so it's always changing colors. The cool thing is it can end up on any color. So remember I showed you the bishops and they can only stay on one color square, where this can go from a light square to a dark square to a light square to a dark square. So I'm going to show you something, and I'm going to tell you, ask you how many moves you think it'll take for the knight to take this piece. Okay, that's what we're going to try to find out here. And here we go. Okay, so we have the knight here and the white queen here. So if it can only go 2 and 1, how does this knight take this piece? So it's on a light square, it can't go right to another light square. We know it can't take it one piece, plus that's 3 and 1, that's not 2 and 1. So take a look really quick and tell me how you think it can go. If it goes 2 and 1, how many moves can you do it to take this queen? And there's two ways to do it. So one way to do it is you could go from here to here, 2 and 1. That would be the first move. And on the next move, you could go 2 and 1, and then you would take the queen. So 2 moves, right? You could also do it this way, 2 and 1, and then you could go 2 and 1, take the queen this way, right? Now, if you want, it's the same thing as 1 and 2. It doesn't really matter how you move the piece. Most people, when they play chess, just pick it up and put it. They actually jump with the piece. Now, there's a reason they do that, because let's say your own pieces are blocking this knight. So we'll make the knight blocked by pieces. Okay, so the knight is blocked by all these pieces, and you know, in chess, you can't jump any pieces. Once you get to a piece, you have to stop, right? But the knight is a special piece. The knight can actually, it doesn't matter what other pieces are around it. When it goes 2 and 1, it just goes to that square automatically. So in effect, it can actually jump over pieces. So it can jump to here, and then in the next move, even if the queen is surrounded by pieces, and then on the next move, the queen can jump in here, take the queen, and it just jumped to that square. So the knight can jump over pieces. So we're gonna clear the board real quick. Okay, so we're back to the basic pieces for the video, and we're just gonna review really quick. The king can go 1 square in any direction. The queen can go as many squares as it wants, including diagonals. The rook can go as many squares as it wants, but only on straight lines. The bishop can go as many squares as it wants, but only diagonals. And then the knight does that special jump move, 2 and 1, 2 and 1. Okay, so that is the video for today. This is just part 1 of how the chess pieces move. Stay tuned for the next video, which is going to be how the pawns move. And thanks for watching Chess 101.